Hey everyone, and welcome to month 22 of the OLED burn-in test. So this is a monthly burn-in test I've been running on my LG C9 OLED. You can see the model name just there, OLED 65C9 PLA. And I've been running this since I purchased it back in, I believe it was February of 2020. UTT just down below here is 3,230. That's the total number of hours on this particular panel. OFFRS is the mini pixel refresher count. So the mini pixel refresher has run 527 times, last one being after 3,230 hours, and 3 major pixel refreshers have been run. One was automatic, 2 were run manually, the last one having been the automatic one, which was run on 2,481 hours. So with that, I will exit out of the service menu and I will restart the test. Okay, so the video is roughly around 6 minutes long. So in that time, what I'm going to do is, for anybody watching for the first time, firstly, welcome to the channel. As mentioned at the start, this is a monthly burn-in test that I run on this particular panel, just to give people an idea in terms of what actual usage is like with an OLED TV, basically what it's like to live with an OLED TV. So this particular panel has been used primarily for gaming since it was first purchased during the lockdowns when there was very little new content coming out. Most of the usage was basically gaming. Since then, obviously, once things returned somewhat back to normal, it has been used a lot for movies, TV shows, as well as a lot of sporting events, but the majority of the usage is content that has static elements, basically. So with gaming, you always have the head-up displays, and with sports, you always have some sort of a head-up display as well. So you'll have a scorecard, you'll probably have the logo of the actual TV channel, if you like, that's actually broadcasting the event itself. Weekends, usually when football is on, I'll watch probably 2 to 3 games, sometimes in a row, and whenever it's not being used for that, generally my son's using it for PlayStation. We do use it a lot for movies and TV series as well. I have got this paired up with a home cinema system, the LG SN11RG. I've got videos on both on my channel if you do want to look more into the technical side of each one. But because of that, obviously it does get a fair amount of mixed usage, but whenever it's used for gaming or sports, generally it tends to be in big chunks. Now, the original reason I started making these videos was with the release of the new consoles, a lot of people were looking at what to get, and the myth or the hysteria around OLED panels is still pretty much out there. Even though people realize and recognize the fact that these are probably the best units for gaming, they still have this sort of built-in phobia of OLED because of the sort of myth around it with regards to burn-in. So I started creating these just to give other people an idea in terms of what it's like when you're actually using one. And obviously I've not done anything special in terms of running tests, simulated tests or anything like that. This is real world usage. I've literally just used it as a normal TV, and this is what it's like coming up to almost 2 years. In February, obviously, we'll have hit the 2-year mark. Usage wise, it's had chunks where we've not really used it, where there was very little content on, there was no sports on, there was no new movies coming out, and obviously for that whole period, the gaming would have been primary. So there were huge chunks of, especially during lockdown, where it was used for maybe 12 plus hours a day of the same game, either Fortnite, Call of Duty, something like that, FIFA, all of them, same thing again, have head-up displays. So with that, as you can see when we're running through these slides, none of this has any type of ghosting, there's no image retention, vignetting, anything like that. And obviously, clearly you can see there's no burn-in. So you don't need to be doing anything special. Obviously, I do have a video on my channel dedicated to how to avoid burn-in, and basically it just goes into answering the question as to why these panels probably are less susceptible to burn-in. I wouldn't say they're burn-in proof, so I won't say that it's impossible to get burn-in, but even from a lot of the big channels on YouTube, they still have this sort of notion or thought or mindset where they're saying it's still something that you should be aware of to try and avoid. Whereas what I've done with my usage is I've literally just used this as I would any other TV, and as you can see, 2 years down the line, it's still pretty much perfect. I didn't measure the actual brightness, so I don't know if there's been any peak brightness drop off or not, but it's not something that I've noticed during content, and movies are still better on this TV than anywhere that I've experienced them. And obviously the size comparison aside, even when I go to the movies and I see raised blacks, basically raised greys, it's still a part of me that's wanting to actually experience this on a much bigger scale, but obviously price would be quite a big issue there. In terms of the actual set itself, as I did mention before in one of my previous videos, I do need to do an updated video on the actual set for long-term usage, because that's somewhere where LG don't cover themselves in glory with firmware updates and things like that. Similarly with the actual soundbar itself as well, that has had some issues, which I'll go into further in a separate video. But this is just my sort of monthly video that I'm running. Originally I was actually doing it weekly, just to give people a track record of both the hours increasing, as well as obviously any sort of issues on the screen had it occurred. Obviously it didn't, but this, for anybody further down the line who is still harping on about the fact that OLEDs could potentially get burn-in, this is proof that basically by the time anybody does actually get any type of burn-in or image retention, more than likely they'll probably have been replacing the set by that time anyway. Obviously right now we're still in the sort of 4K era. That is the end of the actual video. We're still in the 4K era, and HDR is still very new in terms of its adoption, but that's something that probably will get replaced pretty soon, and it won't be that long before we're seeing 8K HDR TVs. And as soon as that happens, something like this, whilst it is still a brilliant TV, you're going to be watching you're going to want to watch everything in the highest possible quality. And for that reason, obviously most sets, I would say most TV sets are probably only, unless you're buying right at the point when something first comes out, most sets are only going to actually be useful for probably 4 to 5 years at most. I would expect that this set would still continue working probably 10 years down the line, as I have had with my LG plasma TVs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to want to use this as my main set for basically 10 years. More than likely 5 years after this was purchased, I'll probably be looking at something, because I'm guessing 8K will have been sort of standard across the industry by then, and that's something that more than likely I'll be upgrading to. Anyway, that's it for this particular video. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and also hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of any up and coming videos. And until the next one, thanks very much for watching.